Chris.
Jake. This episode of Important If True is brought to you by Warby Parker. Stylish and affordable prescription eyeglasses and sunglasses. And if you go to warbyparkertrial.com/thumbs, you can get 5 frames sent to your home to try on for free for 5 days. That's warbyparkertrial.com/thumbs.
Nick.
Popcorn.
Jeez.
Popcorn.
You go like popcorn, Nick, and then you have to like say something.
What?
Is that not
Popcorn Nick.
Ah!
Popcorn is the number you dial to hear the time.
What? What are you talking about?
Popcorn Jake!
Popcorn's the number you dial.
Oh, you're supposed to say the
How
time
do you
is
dial
10:15.
popcorn?
There's letters on the numbers, Chris.
You have to dial P. Oh, you've got that many letters?
That's 7 numbers. That's how long a phone number is.
Yeah, but I thought it would be one of those like magic ones, like star 69.
No, it's popcorn.
Oh.
I don't think it works anymore, but
Really?
it won't work. That was the number that, at least in the town that I grew up in, that you would call that would make the phone tell you what time it was.
Weird.
I honestly don't know what time it is either, but I can tell you what date it is, so we should do this podcast. Stop looking up popcorn. Popcorn Chris, popcorn Nick, but like reverse.
Oh shit, it's ringing.
What?
What?
U.S. Naval Observatory.
Oh, you got that one to work.
At the tone, Eastern Daylight Time. 0 hours, 25 minutes, 45
Listen to-
seconds.
It's in sync.
4 hours, 25 minutes, 50 seconds.
That's a different service than the one that I had.
26 minutes, 5 seconds.
Popcorn was a lady? It's September 14th, 2017.
And this is Important If True.
Okay, for Vinyl Thumbs, I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin. Hey, guys.
Hi.
Hey, Chris.
So,
We haven't done this podcast in a couple of
we
days.
have to get something out of the way
Yeah.
on this episode because it was.
Oh.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
got some real important if true.
Yeah, I want to apologize for this being on the podcast, but it has to be done.
I think you should tell as much of the backstory as
Yeah.
possible to get this fully
Yeah.
contextualized.
So if you remember
Your hairdresser, Chris, told
Yes.
you a story.
Yes.
that Nick and I both patronize. Yeah. She told me a story that I relate on the podcast about a woman who went on a date, clogged a toilet, put herself in a difficult situation from which she attempted to extricate herself by extricating the feces by hand from the toilet, which she then placed into a bag, accidentally left on the countertop of her date while he was gone at work, locked herself out of the apartment, and then was forced to leave with the fecal matter still in the kitchen.
In a bag.
In a bag next to a note saying, "Thanks, I had a great time." So I told that story on the podcast while Nick, you sat there
Like
flabbergasted.
incredulous.
Like you were
Yeah.
beside yourself. And then revealed at the end that you, in fact, had told that story to our hairdresser.
Yes.
Who had then told it to me
Yes.
while strenuously claiming that it was someone else
Right.
who had told her.
Nick, you said that it was a coworker of yours who told you the story, implied that it happened to them. Then a billion people,
More or less.
there were a few enough degrees of separation that
It's
you
like 3
believed
degrees
that
of
you believed you
separation.
had heard the source.
Yeah.
Then the email deluge began, including it having like a Snopes page, it being told as a joke on talk shows, it being a thing that just, it's an urban legend. And we attempted to course correct with a bunch of other similar poo stories that people sent us, all of which were also debunked.
Yeah. We then learned about the existence of the Bristol stool scale, a measuring rubric used to classify turds named after the city of Bristol in the United Kingdom.
We also learned that Bristol is home of robotics researchers who make robots fueled by poop.
There's a bus that runs on poop.
Yes.
Bristol's just the center of the poop world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I'm sorry for bringing this all back on this podcast, but days ago, and
it's almost like it's clogged in our podcast.
yeah, it's almost like
It's almost like
Yeah.
we need to somehow remove it from our podcast.
Our email address, our email inbox has been backed up significantly, clogged to the brim
Yeah.
with hundreds of emails about an actual real-world news verified event in Bristol, in the city of Bristol, in the United Kingdom, about a couple who went on a Tinder date to the guy's house. The woman went up to the bathroom, found herself in a difficult situation. Toilet was clogged. She didn't know what to do. She scooped out the turds out of the toilet bowl and attempted to throw them out of the window. Went downstairs, apologized. She came clean, which is impressive, so to speak. She said, "I'm so sorry. I panicked. I threw my poo out the window. I'm really sorry." And he said, "Okay, no big deal. We'll go out into the garden. We'll clean it up and we'll throw it away. It's fine, whatever." They go out there. They realize, oh my God, this is a window that is built such that there are two panes separated by only a few inches. So when she and the outer one is not able to be opened, and the inner one is like 4 feet tall. So the poo ended up between two panes of glass in this like compartment between windows of this guy's bathroom. And he said, "Okay, I guess we'll call the fire department. They're going to have to break the window because there's no other way to get to this." She said, "No, wait, I'm a gymnast. You will lower me into the gap between the windows and I will retrieve it." I guess like this is Mission Impossible style, basically. This is like diving in between the lasers to grab the prize. So he dunks her upside down, head first, arm first, into the cavity between the two windows. She gets stuck.
He takes pictures of this.
Yeah, there are photographs of her just like smushed in between the two window panes with her arm like brap and her face like mushed up against the glass. They then do call the fire department. They come and have to smash the interior window to get her out, which they do. They spend about 15 minutes carefully breaking the window. They get her out. And then he, with her permission, creates a GoFundMe page to replace the glass pane of his window that was shattered, supported by photographic evidence of this incredible encounter. In the week or so since, this has been verified by the BBC and numerous other news organizations by way of quotes from all the parties
We were really
involved.
careful about this.
Yeah. The fire department has issued statements about this. There is copious evidence, gross evidence supporting the details of this fact. It is not a hoisting. It is a true, let's be real.
Yeah.
It was quite the hoisting.
There was hoisting contained within the story.
Yes,
within the imaginations of the story.
There was literal and figurative hoisting involved in this story all over the place.
Yeah.
A woman was hoisted.
Yes.
And was hoisted.
We are not hoisted, except that we fucking reintroduced this bullshit back into our podcast.
True.
Yeah.
That's
well,
So it's hoisted all around.
it's impossible. It's impossible to not talk about this. I can't believe. Well, okay. Nick, right now, if you said, "Well, it was me," actually, I would not. I don't know what I would do.
You would die.
I don't know what I would do because I would be dead.
Yeah.
It's impossible to not talk about this, given that it's basically the actual like disgusting vortex at the center of the important if true universe.
Yeah, we simulated a universe. We spent several months simulating a universe by way of this podcast.
What would you call the important if true universe? Would you just call it the important if true universe? Is that garbage?
Oh God.
Important if true universe.
The important cinematic universe is the ICU. The important cinematic universe project. The ICUP. There you go, Chris. Are you happy now?
I'm so happy, Jake. The ICUP. Fuck off.
Well, we're already here. We're already in a story about a woman
Yeah.
who threw poo into a window, then got stuck and had to be pulled out by the fire department. So
In Bristol.
I know.
That is like
that really is
truly
the
unbelievable. Nick, you didn't realize that when you first saw the story.
No.
And you exploded earlier when tonight when
Yeah,
you actually
it's
read the whole-
unbelievable.
It truly is
So
unbelievable.
I think that I know what might actually be going on here. And it is that reality is becoming untethered from time, and we're witnessing the actual inciting incident of this story.
Oh shit.
I think time travel is confirmed to be
Oh my
real.
God.
And this information
This is the telephone, all of our podcasts months ago were actually the sort of 1 degree separated, 1 degree separated, 1 degree, another 20 degrees separation
Yeah, it's like
sort of
this
telephone game of this actual event that occurred
Yeah.
days ago
When that girl-
and have spiraled out through the multiverse,
Yes.
the ICU universe.
when that young woman put herself and the poo between those two panes of glass, some sort of just quantum reverberation happened,
Yes,
and
yes.
the entire event went
Sympathetic vibrations.
back in time.
Yeah.
Which we've been hearing the aftershocks in reverse.
Yeah.
Through our podcast.
Yeah.
So I don't know what to make of that, but it's terrifying. It's terrifying
what?
that this event.
God, that's actually fuck. That's okay. So I was reading this story, and there was an incredible caption that I have to assume is just sort of a colloquialism, but maybe it wasn't, because the caption, it has the photograph of the woman sandwiched between the windows, and the caption of the windows is, Liam Smith pictured his date trapped upside down in the window, which is amazing. I think what they meant by that is photographed his date,
Yeah.
but maybe they didn't.
Maybe he pictured
this
it.
was-
Maybe had a premonition. Maybe
Yes.
he was also getting hit by the
Exactly.
aftershocks
Yes.
of this.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
He was struck, as though by lightning, with an image of his date trapped in the window. He couldn't quite figure out why. Weirdly, that image was 7 years ago. When he was first.
That image of that girl trapped in that window is also a total cursed image. 100%.
Oh, yeah, no, it
is a
it
total
completely
cursed
is,
image.
yeah.
It's a disaster.
Yeah.
Someone had that perfect simulator of the universe that we talked about last week and typed into it, what if the poo story was real? And then the computer went into an incredible recursion and crashed and erased itself. Erased. It's September 14th, 2017.
And this is important if true.
From Idle Thumbs, I'm Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin.
Hello.
Hi.
Welcome back. Nick, you're in Hawaii.
I was.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Was it relaxing and nice?
Mostly.
What do you mean mostly?
What?
Well, I severely burned
Oh, shit. How'd it get
key
burned?
areas of me.
Key areas of you? What does that mean? Is that
All right, well, that's applying something that is not what I mean to imply.
certain strategic zones, if you follow my meaning?
Yeah.
Tactical burns.
Yeah. The first day we were there, I put suntan lotion on myself, but because we live in a cloudy, the cloudiest area of the country, I am not practiced at doing that. I haven't put suntan lotion on in months.
You just do
And
it.
You just do it. But we had this chalky
Suntan lotion.
We had this chalky
You just
suntan
do
lotion
it.
that we couldn't spread.
Well,
and then
that's
there
your
wasn't
problem.
It was a whole thing. Long story short, I forgot to put suntan lotion on my feet.
Oh, boring. Yeah, no?
Not boring, Chris.
Okay.
I'm bored.
They were a shade, like a dark shade
Oh, no.
of purple. after this.
What?
And the second day, it felt like my foot is basically in the tightest leather shoe you could possibly imagine.
God.
Oh, that was your
where,
flesh.
Where you just like any bending of the foot, it was just like just stretching this like taut leather.
No.
I mean,
don't
it was
like this
just
at all.
it was bad. I did have a conversation. Show.
I like it's like I did also burn my.
I did have a conversation though with somebody.
I faved that tweet.
Yeah, my girlfriend's sister. Her boyfriend has 7 brothers, or has 5 brothers and 3 sisters.
Is this a riddle?
And a lot
What's
of them,
happening?
Yeah. And then there's a train, and it goes so many miles. So we just a ton of people at this house, and people were asking me like what I do, and like Janelle was like, "Oh, Nick's like he has a podcast, like he does a podcast."
That's not what you do.
I know. It was like one of the things,
Sure, yeah, okay.
and I was talking to one of her brothers. And he said, like, "Oh, what's your podcast about?" And I was like, fuck. I don't know. It's complicated. Whatever. And then somebody asked him, like, "Oh, his name's Bryson." He was like,
You're
like,
creating a weird, like, recursive universe singularity right now, by the way.
yeah, I know. And somebody asked,
What's your podcast about? Why don't you listen to the next episode and find out? So anyway, he asked me what the podcast was about.
About.
yeah. So somebody asked him, though. They were like, "Oh, Bryson, like, if you did a podcast, like, what would your podcast be about?" And her brothers are all like really sweet guys, but they work in construction, and so like I expected an answer of long lines of like a sports podcast or something like that, you know?
You prejudiced motherfucker.
Well, whatever.
Fucking prick.
So he says my podcast I think would be about nanotechnology, and I was like, really?
Shit.
Do you know like a lot about nanotechnology or something? And he was like, no, I think that's just what my podcast would be about. And you're like, oh well, it is like my podcast. Like, oh, you just explained our podcast. That's what I do.
Position's taken, buddy.
Yeah, right.
Step
Yeah,
off.
yeah. Back away.
Get the fuck out.
Yeah, it was very good. Anyway, that's all I got.
You're like, okay, so what? Let's workshop this. What if it was about that and my foot burns?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. That part doesn't sound very. I don't think I would.
Fuck you. That's the lead of my next episode.
Yeah, what if it was like a growth leather shoe? I don't know. I don't think that's good.
That sounds bad. Sounds like bad content.
No, but it was like really painful. What if I tell everyone about it?
Yeah.
What if I infer something lewd first and then tell them about you?
God, this is stupid.
Sorry.
It's not your fault.
You
It's all of
fucking
our
ass.
fault.
You did it.
While you were doing that, it was my birthday this past weekend, and we went to Sarah and I went with Jake and Dana to a thing called Speakeasy, which is it's a really fun kind of like interactive performance thing where you go to it and it's all decked out like a Prohibition era speakeasy. It's like kind of cheesy, but it's a really fun, lightly interactive thing. You're not like
it has a full bar and a sort of cabaret style theater and a small like casino that you play in for fun, not for actual cash.
Yeah, they do expect you to like not be wearing jeans and a t-shirt or whatever, so you don't break the illusion of the whole thing. So we, we were heading out of our apartment to go to this, and I'm like, wearing a full suit and a pocket square and everything, and Sarah's in a cocktail dress, and we're all, we got the whole thing. It was like, we've got the whole thing, and then the instant I close our apartment door, I realized that I locked ourselves out and did not have.
And you would put.
It's September 14th. No.
I had locked us out. The keys were still in the apartment. At that point, we still had like an hour or so before we were going to meet you guys, Jake, for dinner. And so we were just like, well, this sucks. Like, we can't, like, what are we going to do now? We have to like go to this thing. You pay in advance for this whole, this whole experience. Like, we're not going to just not go to it. We are, in our building, it's like the individual apartment doors lock, obviously, but then also there's a main door out of the building that also locks. So if you leave that, you can't get back in without a key either. Our building is like 2 buildings connected by a courtyard. The whole buildings all are connected architecturally through like fire escapes and shit. So we started going around to other people's doors in the apartments and like knocking on doors and being like, "Hi, sorry, like we live in this building too, but we locked ourselves out. Is there any way we can like come into your like home and climb out your kitchen window and like climb up a fire escape and climb into our thing?"
I'm sure people were super accommodating.
You'd hope, but I realized that we're knocking on doors, people are opening them, and we're basically these dapper fucking like people were like fully done up, and I like with all the shit.
Hello there, it is I, a gentleman thief.
Yeah. I realized like after like 3 of these that there was a weird effect being created where it looked like I was going so out of my way to appear sort of distinguished and trustworthy that it just blew out the other side into like,
doth thou mind if I enter thine home?
May I cross thine mantle and make my egress through thine cookery? Okay, hi, sorry, I live in the other building and like we're actually connected to your kitchen through the fire escape. Is there any way?
By this point you were dabbing your flop sweat like
I was trying to find any way to like make myself look less like
a cartoon.
Yeah. And he was like, I don't think the buildings are connected, and I'm like, they're definitely connected. Like they're the same.
I've looked into your kitchen a million times. Like, can I just like hang off of that rooster clock that you have? I'll only eat one of the Granny Smith apples in your bowl.
I've never had this experience before, but it was totally that. Just like, I don't know. As he's like closes the door by 1 more inch each time he says a sentence, where he's like, I don't know. Click. And then whatever, we just had to leave.
I can't believe nobody let you do it.
Actually, that's actually not true. One woman did, and Sarah was like, I'll do it. Like I'll just go do it. The woman let her go all the way through her kitchen, come out her kitchen window, climb up the fire escape, and go to our window, which, by the way, like, the wind will just sometimes slam our kitchen window open if it's not fully latched. And I remembered that the day before we're like, we should like close all the latches on these because it's like there's like storms and it's like crazy here recently. So we'd forgotten we did this. The whole thing was locked, and she basically spent 10 minutes like rattling the kitchen window.
Oh, good. That's not any more suspicious than what had been occurring before.
We eventually had to give up and leave. We just went to the thing. Had a fun night with Jake and Dana, and just did the whole thing. Got back to our apartment by like midnight, had to call a locksmith and then just wait there for like 45 minutes as he came and just broke into our apartment and let us in and then left. Like there was no identity verification. There was no like I was like thinking in my head all the ways I was going to like prove that it was our apartment. 0 of them required. I'm like, oh, there's going to be like wedding photos in there that are like the people that are us in it. Nope.
Fuck that shit.
Yeah, he literally like got out his little like Allen wrenches and shit. They weren't Allen wrenches, whatever these like little chunky things are, and just fiddled around with the lock until the door opened. And then I swiped my credit card in his little like square thing, and then he just left.
You should have had him unlock one of the people's apartments that didn't let you in, and then just stride in confidently and just open their window and go through the fire escape and then walk into your apartment from there.
Sarah in your apartment who opens that other one to let you in and then just confidently
just
stride
kind of, like,
across.
Prove the, full, complete
I told
circuit.
you it was my apartment. Yeah, eat that guy's fucking apple on the way through his kitchen and then just walk out.
Steal his pie.
I'll shine it on with my pocket square.
Wait.
I enjoy themed immersive theatrical experiences.
Let's read an email.
I had a normal weekend, by the way, you guys.
Okay.
No part of me was burned or locked.
Well, yeah. I mean, part of your weekend was contained in my story.
Yeah, but it was like the part where we just did a thing.
You just did the thing you intended to do. You didn't have to break into your own house. Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. I'm jealous of that part of it.
Tom Huber writes, most of the time I think and read things in my own voice. Other times the voice is not my own. For instance, this email sounds like Chris Remo's voice, since if it is read on the cast, it will inevitably be read by him. Do any of you have internal voices used for specific purposes?
I remember when I was a kid, I mean, this is the opposite kind of what he's asking, but I remember really potently that when I was a kid, so I loved Calvin and Hobbes when I was a kid. I was like obsessed with the comic strip Calvin and Hobbes. I thought it was like the most amazing thing. I mean, I still think it's an incredible comic strip, but I just remember being like powerfully obsessed with it as a kid. And I'm sure this is a very common experience among children, but I was I just like knew in my soul that Calvin's voice sounded exactly like mine. Like that was just a true fact.
Yeah.
And I remember like if I ever heard someone else like read a Calvin and Hobbes strip out loud or like quote
that's not his
Calvin.
voice.
Yeah, in my head I would just be like, that's not what he sounds like. Obviously, he sounds exactly like this. But I didn't think of it as like Calvin sounds like me or I sound like Calvin.
Right.
It was just the voice that is mine that I recognize as my own. That is just identical. Like it's the same. It's how Calvin sounds. It's just it was like a separate, like disconnected, but very certain belief.
Yeah.
About that voice, which is interesting. It's like a case of really specific I guess like I don't know, like transference. That's not even the word I'm looking for, but like I definitely related powerfully, I guess, to that character to the point that I subsumed. Yeah.
Like when you see someone peeing on the back of a car, you read the word Ford in your own voice. Like
right, exactly.
That's like, what he's peeing on.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, you're like, I hate Ford.
Ford sucks.
Yeah. That's
I pee on it. I have another internal voice that I think of in my own head now that is not my own normal voice. That is the voice I think of when I read outrageous internet. Like,
is it just you doing
texts.
a nerd voice?
Yeah, it's like that stupid nerd voice that I do. That I have done on like other I don't know if I've ever done on this podcast, but I've done it on other podcasts. And I was thinking of it in the context of this question because we got an email from Vanessa from Portland who wrote in with a link to a predictive text generated 1-star review of LaGuardia Airport, which was generated by the same sort of person's predictive text script that was used to generate the Catacombs of Paris review. Do you guys remember this? That
yes.
we read on our other podcast, Idle Thumbs, like
Long time
6
ago.
months ago, like last year, maybe even. And we haven't done one of these in a long time, but this is one that I thought I agreed with Vanessa, who wrote in, that it was an excellent example of the form. It was created entirely with 1-star Yelp reviews of LaGuardia Airport, all fed into this predictive text like machine, and then spit out. So here is the transcript.
In the voice you hear it in your head.
In the voice that I hear this kind of text in my head, yes. The airport is a joke and disgrace, and aviation is an outdated piece of shit. Now and then, I fly into this death trap of a sad disaster. I can truly say that LGA is the shittiest, nastiest dump of food and stagnant air traffic that there ever has been. We were waiting for bags, and it was taking too long. We were hungry for food, and then finally, we were hungry for people. We had no idea how to get some. The lady in front of me was crying because I was having an affair on JFK's plane. I thought, oh well, at least I haven't yet experienced what I don't know about. My family members forgot to take me to my luggage, which is one reason I hate both of my family members. I think about how awful my family is. By comparison, the airport is a complete idiot. The food court is subpar, not enough bathrooms, and disgusting shitholes. I know how to use a restroom, and it doesn't look like what some people in this airport like to do. The airport was the most depressing place to eat anything but Pepsi products. Yuck. I would rather go straight to the nearest subway station and dirty the floor with my bags of smelly garbage. If you're unfortunate enough to be a nightmare, I have a nice alternative for you. Just go to LaGuardia and have a beer and then have some sedatives and then finally sit back and wait for the airport to be demolished. If you can avoid it, please do not look at my family. 1 star.
That kind of in some parts read like a review from a fucked up future.
Yeah.
I that's
These are the best because they like aggregate all of the things and then sort of find commonalities. It's sort of like,
but then concepts blend disgustingly.
Yeah.
I would rather go straight to the nearest subway station and dirty the floor with my bags of smelly garbage.
Yep.
It's very good.
Break.
What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
At a point, more or less.
Yeah,
Sure,
but why
yeah,
not just
but-
say take
that
a
was-
break?
yeah.
Oh, I don't know. I didn't want to like declare it if we felt like it, going. You guys want to take a break?
Sure.
I like the first one way better. Break.
Darn it.
Jeez.
This episode of Important If True is brought to you by Quip. Yeah, Quip designs, manufactures, and sends to your home very nice, compact, well-designed electric toothbrushes. You can get plans where they will send you the toothpaste as well, and then every 3 months, they will send you a brush head refill. So your electric toothbrush always has those good plaque-scraping bristles, fresh for you. They'll even remind you every 6 months to go to the dentist because you can't remember anything in your own life. Nick is staring at me intensely. Nick, it sounds like you need a Quip to tell you to go to the dentist and keep up with the rest of the things in your life.
Nick is thinking about emails we'll read later in the episode.
Nick's freaking me out right now. Nick, why don't you go to tryquip.com/thumbs. That's tryquip.com/thumbs for $10 off your first brush head refill.
You want to just record this podcast?
And we're back.
Jesus Christ.
Hi, guys.
Hi. Hello.
Hi,
We got
Nick's-
our professional
hi, Nick's
voices
girlfriend's
on.
brother. This is-
Oh no! Oh, did I just give myself the hiccups?
Swallow those hiccups. Actually, don't. That'll make the hiccups worse. Don't do that.
I would never swallow a
Yeah,
hiccup.
don't do it.
10 small sips.
What?
10 small sips.
Popcorn.
What does that mean, 10 small sips?
You take 10 small sips of water.
Really?
Cures your hiccups.
I thought you were supposed to take a huge, stream of water with no break.
Really?
That's what I always heard.
Well,
Those
you're
are
wrong.
the opposite of
Man,
literally the opposite.
That's interesting because I always heard that hiccups are incurable.
10 small sips, huh?
Yeah.
I'll have to try that next time.
Try it.
Yeah.
And that's my endorsement.
Peanut butter and jelly sandwiches are good for you. 10 small sips
They
of water.
are.
Yeah.
God, all right. We're moving on before
They're
I get all
not.
riled up.
They're
Yes,
not.
they are.
Okay, all right, whatever you say.
Yeah.
Andrew writes, how is that outrageous to you? How is it
What do you
a
mean?
shocking thing to say peanut butter jelly sandwiches
It's
aren't good
food.
for- Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, true. Good point.
It keeps you going.
Yeah, okay, fine. That's your bar?
Nick Brecken endorses the Snickers bar of sandwiches.
I'm not
Snickers
saying-
bars are great.
I'm not saying there's anything wrong with peanut butter jelly sandwiches or that
Yeah.
it's bad to eat them. They're obviously not good for you.
Yes, they are. What are you talking about? Name me a food that's better than a peanut butter and jelly
all
sandwich
right,
for you.
Right, I see what you're doing.
No. Tell me a lunch sandwich that is superior in nutrition.
What are you fucking with me right now?
No.
I don't know, anything that doesn't have jelly in it,
Jelly is healthy. It's a serving of fruit. It's fruit preserves.
Oh my
You need
God.
5 servings of fruit a day, Chris.
5 servings of jelly, 10 sips of water.
Yeah, that's all you need. I live to 98 on that's
And I
10
smoked every day.
5 servings of jelly
With my peanut
and
butter.
10 little sips. All right.
We
right,
get
good.
Nick's cousin-in-law or whatever the fuck on this podcast to tell us about peanut butter nutrition.
All right.
Hey, we're back. Break.
We're back. Oh, we're back.
Oh.
Okay.
Break.
Bryant Wagner writes, in recent episodes, you've been discussing the possibility and likelihood that at least one of you is replaced with a robot. Have we been discussing the likelihood of that?
We've talked about that a handful of times.
I guess
now.
this sort of
Yeah.
snuck into a lot of...
I think
yeah.
a lot of times we've talked about the fact that one of us could easily be replaced by a robot who
Yeah.
mimics all of our behaviors, and none of us would know, and one of us probably is.
All right, well, so to that point, Brian Wagner continues, the assumption has been that it would be lifelike and have an advanced AI so good at mimicry that nobody would know it wasn't the real you. But what if that wasn't necessary? What if everyone was seamlessly fooled by any kind of robot replacement and you could choose what that would be? Would you still prefer the perfect AI replica? Perhaps a manufacturing arm would better carry on your legacy. Or maybe your style is becoming a pizza band robot with a few songs and quips. Of any possibilities, what robot do you want continuing your life? That's an outrageous premise. Is the premise seriously that it could be absolutely anything?
Yes.
And the people around you would just be like, "Oh, hey, Chris."
Yeah.
Yeah, great.
Classic. Classic.
Oh, man.
As you're just like a fucking paint can shakers. Like, what do you think about that, Chris?
Oh, Chris.
I'm the volleyball from Castaway.
That's not a robot. Okay. So I immediately went down this train of thought and started looking up just like literally definition of robot, because I refer to all sorts of dumb shit as a robot. Like any simple machine I refer to as a robot.
Sure.
Right? Like
Sure, where's the line, right?
yeah, just, I've referred to basically a wheel as a robot before. I'm pretty sure.
Early man, first robotic
robot
creation.
fire.
Nanos.
It's, a machine capable of carrying out a complex series of actions automatically, especially one programmable by a computer. I don't care about the second part of that definition, but I feel like that's...
I don't care about the part of this definition that... I guess it says especially.
Yeah.
So not mandatorily.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, okay,
No,
fair
yeah.
enough. Yeah, that's true. That's true, of course. Early robots weren't computer controlled.
And then I looked up, I did a Google search for simplest robots, because I thought that would be probably,
Yeah.
if I could fool someone with any fucking thing,
Yeah.
I should probably just find the simplest robots. And then I found the webpage at instructables.com, which is a sort of like maker how-to site.
Yeah.
That's just an Instructables sort of like playlist or tag group called Your First Robot. And it's complete step-by-step instructions for 15 robotics projects. But the first one that I found, and this is definitely what I would replace myself with, is a thing called the Pocket Drunken Robot, which, let me show you a picture of the Pocket Drunken Robot. It appears to be a watch battery hooked up to a pager or cell phone buzzer mechanism with a tiny cute face drawn on it.
What? What does it do? It's just a goofy little smiley face.
Little smiley face covered in tinfoil, and all that it does is its head is a button that you press, and then it just goes and just sort of wiggles around on a desk and smiles.
This is like a bobblehead?
No. It's built out of like a cell phone or a pager buzzer. So it's a little thing like the size of like a stack of 10 nickels, and all it does is go and sort of just like sort of like wiggle around on a desk like it's drunk, I guess. Like it sort of just stumbles around.
I see.
But it has a cute little smiley face on it, and you can just turn it on and
So
off by
it's
pressing
a
a button
robot
on its
whose
head.
function is amusement.
Yes.
So the thing I want to know about this, given that, let's say Jake, we introduced Important If True, and I mean, how fucked up of a seed does this apply? Is this like mass delusion for the entire world?
Well,
is this like
well,
the fucking
yeah.
magic magician?
I mean, that's what it
magician
is,
from
right?
last
That's the
episode
premise.
Enchants the globe.
Well, we
and everyone agrees this is Jake. What happens when we start recording this podcast and Nick's like, "This is important if true," and I'm
then I
like,
just
"I'm
go,
Chris Remo and I'm Nick Brecken."
Oh,
Jake.
Jake.
Hey,
No. It wouldn't go like that. You would say, I'm Chris Remo. I would say, I'm Nick Brecken. And then I would have to reach over and hit the thing. And then it would go...
But neither of us would consider that weird or notable.
Exactly. We're just
You would just be
tossing it to Jake by
exactly.
activating him.
Exactly. But how far does that go?
Okay.
Well,
Like, I think if you were the pocket drunk robot, you would end up in many classic situations as experienced by Dougie Jones and countless other sort of borderline comatose characters from
you would Mr.
film and
Magoo
television.
through life.
Yeah, you'd be like in a meeting at work, and someone would be like, "Yeah, I just can't figure out this problem. What do you think, Jake?"
Like,
Yeah, you're not impressed, huh? Yeah, really. I guess you're right. I guess I haven't really thought this through. You're right. Back to the drawing board, and then they go back and have a brilliant idea.
Right.
And the company is, does gangbusters, and then you're all the more celebrated. But yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess there would have to be some jobs in which that would be bad. If you were like a first responder medical
I
professional.
feel like the world would have to heal itself around me somehow changing the world in that way. You think I would just let people die? I wouldn't, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, do you think it's contingent on how good at your job you already were? I mean, I presumably
Like if that's
like
if that's the sort of possibility space people will allow and sort of heal around you, or like, oh well, you know, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Honestly, I'd probably rather just be a pizza band robot because at least then I'd get to
what?
sing and talk. A pizza band robot.
Oh, you'd rather be the oh no.
That was in the email. It was proposed that you could be an arm
Yeah.
or a pizza band.
That's
robot.
really fucked up because that would actually make for a terrifying. Like if you could ever look at the.
If you're the one person who could objectively stand
Exactly,
outside of it,
right,
and they would
yeah.
just scream forever. If I'm a little buzzing thing the size of a nickel that just sort of wiggles around on a table and everyone talks like I'm a person, that would be distressing.
That just looks like
but
Nick and I are just weird, kind
Yeah.
of. We're just,
Yeah.
It would be way more fucked up if I was just a huge sort of like purple, like grimace / gorilla bear with a banjo that strings didn't actually work, but I just played recordings of me playing music.
Right. Well, or if you're just that one robot and all the rest of the apparatus isn't there, you're just doing
I'm
the
Yeah.
That's disgusting. I don't like it.
Yeah.
Chris, you'd be a Quip toothbrush.
Yeah. Every 30 seconds.
Every 30 seconds.
Time your mouth quadrant.
Also vibrating. So,
Yeah, exactly,
so this
yeah.
podcast
Jake and I are just gonna hang out
with
and
this
chat.
nonstop vibration.
And this
It's just Nick. It's Nick, a little vibrating smiley face,
Right.
and a toothbrush.
No, I'm a perfect replicant,
Welcome to the
super
Nick Brecken
advanced
Podcast,
AI,
episode 3.
just like
but
a,
who
you know,
acts exactly like Nick Brecken.
Right. Meanwhile, I'm joined by my co-hosts and
My co-host, Chris Ramo, boop,
Yeah.
C dentist, boop, and Jake Rodkin. That would actually just be. This content exists on our Patreon.
Yeah,
it is the Nick Brecken podcast
Oh, yeah,
where you
that's
talk
true.
to
Basically,
yourself.
the next time you do one of those,
Yeah.
I think we know. What,
No, yeah,
what it's going to
I've got my idea.
The overall conceit of this, though, that you're just some shitty robot and the rest of the world has healed itself around believing that you're real.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. What's even
Yeah,
the point
it's
of
really
existing?
good.
In that. That's a just really terrifying universe.
I-
As are all the
well,
universes.
I mean,
seem
we
to
picked
postulate.
the stupidest robot examples. I like that you could basically be, you could be the robotic arms. You could hand people things, and you could be useful, and they treat
Yeah.
you.
So here's a question. So here's a question. What if the kind of robot you are is a sort of assembly line manufacturing robot that spits out newly created things? I mean, you'd have to get raw materials
People just,
from somewhere.
Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, what if
Thank you.
overnight the room just fills up with gears?
Like, oh, Chris is at it again.
But what are
Making
they?
his
but what are
gears.
they? Yeah, what are they thinking?
He just
that
loves
is,
making these gears.
But that's a new trait. I didn't love making gears when I was me.
You've always liked making gears.
So that just gets retconned into
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah.
Wow, this is a sinister.
I mean, you do love making those gears.
I hope I make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I hope I make jelly.
Yeah, all right.
I hope you
make
burn
jelly too, Nick.
strategic areas.
Dante Johnson writes, speaking of weird powers kids had, Dante Johnson writes, speaking of weird powers kids believe they had, someone as a kid told me or gave me the idea that sleeping makes things go faster. It's not wrong in a way, but I started trying to apply that to other parts of my life, specifically video game load screens. I realized as I got older, closing my eyes to make the loading screen load faster was ridiculous, but I find myself to this day, at age 31, closing my eyes during long waits on screen. Be well, Dante Johnson. I realized when I was reading this email that I do a really stupid and embarrassingly cheesy thing, which is when I turn off a light switch, not 100% of the time, but frequently, when I turn off a light switch, knowing that I'm about to be engulfed in darkness, at the exact instant I flip the switch, I will close my eyes I think what my brain is doing is simulating the effect in a film when a cut to black is synced up with the light being turned off. So it's not just that the light is turning off, it's that everything is being deleted from the screen.
Okay, so now I
Yeah.
know that in the moment that you turn off a light, I could change or remove or add something from the room, and you would be infinitely less likely to notice, because if you're that trick of blacking out your vision and opening it is exactly how to fool your brain about small changes that take place in the environment around you.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Huh.
There's an exhibit in the Exploratorium about that, where it has pictures of city streets. The Exploratorium being the San Francisco sort of science hands-on museum. It has pictures of city streets and of rooms, and it will cut to black in between and bring it back up. And if you look at a picture of this podcast studio, and then immediately on the next frame, this cup was gone, you would notice it. But if it cuts to black and comes back, and that cup is gone, you are way less likely to notice that happened.
That totally makes sense.
So, get ready to be fucking owned every time you turn a light switch on and off.
When my world turns to black and returns, and you have been replaced with a small,
you're way less likely to notice.
Face,
yeah,
I'm equally as likely to notice as I would have before, which is to say, entirely unlikely to notice.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. We have a couple. We have two of these actually. We have one more of these follow-ups. Daniel writes, "I enjoyed Chris's anecdote about his car window laser. I too engaged in this absurd fantasy. I think it exists at an intersection between childhood boredom and assimilation of games and movies when our brains are still squishy. I don't think I stuck with that one too long, though, because it evolved into something different. One of my favorite car games to play was to spot one piece of window filth, as you described, but then imagine it acted somehow similarly to a platform character like Mario. Instead of having a directional pad and jump button, I simply moved and pivoted my head to reposition the spot. For obstacles, there were mailboxes, electric and utility boxes, small bushes, whatever lined the road. Another obstacle or surface to have the spot glide over was the guardrail for bridges and highway overpasses. Then, in 1999, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater came out for PlayStation, and my fixation on this game re-solidified. Having my stupid little window spot do a sick grind on those guardrails was one of the most satisfying things ever. In summation, kids are bored, kids are weird."
That actually, I didn't have an answer to this when it first came up, and it reminded me of a couple things. One, as a kid, my eyesight must have been far better, because I remember always noticing that if I focused out through the windshield of the car, I thought that I could occasionally see basically weird organisms, and I'm sure that what that actually was out of focus dust on the outside of my eye. I definitely can never focus well enough to see that shit anymore. But this skateboarding / Mario reminded me that I didn't ever play games with that stuff, but being in a car was when I was the most fascinated by sort of parallaxing and one-point perspective, and having either a thing right in front of my eye or a thing attached to the car that I could pivot my head around and sort of watch the way that the world would rotate around it was always super fascinating to me. I used to be obsessed with the road barrier, the metal divide, the metal guardrail at the end, not the median, but sort of like the metal guardrail on the edge, or sometimes it's a median.
Yeah.
And sort of the weird effect of the strobes of the posts that would have.
Really into
and
that.
If that happened and a cornfield or crop was in the background and there were alternating strobes at different parallax layers, I used to always think about that and try to fool my brain into thinking that things in the far distance were somehow closer, and try to basically convince my brain that pieces of the world were overlapping with other pieces.
Yeah.
And just thinking about weird parallax, and that occupied way too much of my brain.
I definitely
that's an abstract weird thing to describe, but
no, I totally relate to that. I remember it's funny you mentioned cornfields, because I didn't live anywhere where there were cornfields, but I remember my grandmother did, and I remember when we flew to Pennsylvania to visit her. I remember when we would drive through cornfields, it was intensely fascinating for me, because it just goes off into the horizon, and you can perceive the parallax of it, and the the ones really far away barely move, but the ones close zoom by, and I would imagine myself sort of tethered and almost orbiting around it, because I'm the ones far away basically don't move, so am I circling? And I was trying to reconcile how, as you say, the one-point perspective
the ultimate
works.
combo of all of this is if there is somehow some linear thing like a field and a weird guardrail, or perhaps two guardrails, and then also somehow a big swooping overpass goes over the top. That's just the best sort of perspective brain eye candy that can exist when you're in the back of a car.
Have you guys seen the Michel Gondry Chemical Brothers music video? It's old. It's from 2000, but the whole music video is just a perspective of basically looking at a train window, and like you're just kind of watching like things go by, and then you realize that the sort of underlying like 1, 2, 3, 4 beat of the song lines up perfectly with like telephone poles, and then just like as the song gets more and more complicated, it's an electronic song, so it just gets like more and more layers get added. There's all of these elements in the background and foreground start getting added, and it just becomes basically
really good.
like an
That's
insane like wave.
That's like a Winamp visualizer.
Winamp visualizer, yeah. But just looking out the whole time, just looking out, and then like.
That's my dream. God, that's my dream.
There's this amazing break in the middle of it where it's like it gets more and more complicated, and then it enters a city, and it's getting really cacophonous and everything, and then it just falls away completely into this just sort of like really serene noise as it hits a field. It's amazing. It's so good. Anyway, I think it's Star Guitar is the name of the track.
That sounds really good.
Yep.
Have you ever seen those musical roads where they you know when you're on a highway sometimes and to sort of encourage being conscious of your speed when you drive over it, it'll sort of create a vibration that goes in certain places, including in Japan, there are highways. Oh, hey, Jake.
Yeah.
There are certain places where the roads will actually play a succession of musical notes by varying the distance between those like sets of the frequency basically of those little
My
ridges.
friend Alexi was obsessed with this in college, which I was before any of us had known that exists, or maybe before someone else had done it. He was obsessed with the idea of filing a patent for a road waveform, like finding the correct mix of like asphalt and metal or whatever else you would need to get a fidelity level that if you hit the median, it would say "drink Coca-Cola."
Drink Coca-Cola.
Yeah, like ideally it would at first say stop or something, but then we're like, oh fuck, you could sell ad space literally on the road where someone and then it's like, why put it in the median? Just put it in the middle of the goddamn freeway. So you're like, a toll road, you could drive in the toll lane or
the
Coca-Cola. I'm loving it.
To me.
To me. If I could be any robot, I would be pavement engraved in the shape of an advertisement.
To go back to Daniel's actual email, I did literally these exact things. I did exactly the like spot on the window becomes a platformer, and I would move my head up and down to like jump with the dot. I did that exact thing, and then I also exactly migrated to a skateboarding Tony Hawk version of it when the Tony Hawk video game came out, and my friends and I played it all night long. Like, it's absurd how identical my experience was.
See, for me, the spot was a laser. So it was like a reticle. Like I was like looking at the spot on the windshield, and that was like what I could shoot the laser out of.
Right.
Yeah.
That was my original.
I know. But that's making me remember that.
I see. That
was the version of it for me.
Yeah.
When Daniel did this, he heard it in your voice.
Well, should we endorse?
Let's endorse.
I'll endorse. This is very much in the vein of a lot of recent endorsements. Which I have to assume at this point is a self-fulfilling prophecy. After so many cooking show recommendations from Nick, YouTube now just assumes, I guess increasingly correctly, that all I want to watch is YouTube cooking shows because that's just what it gives me.
Yep.
I have been watching a show that is totally delightful that is called Alex French Guy Cooking. And it's a French guy named Alex, and he cooks. You'll be surprised to learn.
Nice.
And episodes are like typically 5 to 10 minutes long. And it's just this guy who lives in Paris, a French man, and he is just the most enthusiastic, delightful, easy to watch guy. His goal is to try and take sort of French cuisine and do it in a modern and like approachable way that is like accessible and fun, but still, aware of tradition and history. But it's really like it doesn't really even really matter. It's more his just a general approachability and personality is just really nice, and I like it. A lot of these just well made and polished, but very low key YouTube cooking shows I've found really enjoyable. So anyway, Alex French Guy Cooking. I'll link it in the thing.
Nice.
Jake?
Pass.
Actually, you know what? I'm going to change my endorsement that I had in my head. I'm going to completely change it up and just go with another stupid food YouTube thing.
No.
I have
what?
to. I have to, Chris, because I will forget next week what I want to say, which is that, maybe this is bad, but man, I discovered recently, growing up, a very formative show for me was the original Iron Chef. Are you guys familiar with the original run of Iron Chef at all? Like the Japanese version of Iron Chef?
I haven't actually seen as much of it as I should have.
God, I loved that show, and I haven't seen it in years, and it just came up in conversation with Janelle recently. There are hundreds of episodes of Iron Chef Japan on YouTube that have essentially been saved from oblivion because they don't air that show anymore. Like the second they did the American version, they just got rid of it. Man, is it like still a really good time. Like that show, for people who haven't ever watched it, the premise is absurd. It's the idea is that some man created a battle arena for chefs or something, and they rise out of the ground, and then the challenger that week, who's just usually like a notable chef in Japan, picks from the 3, Iron Chefs, like Iron Chef Japanese, Iron Chef Chinese, Iron Chef Italian, whatever. But then the thing that was ruined in the American version that is still amazing about the Japanese version is they pick a single theme ingredient. It comes out of the floor in these ridiculous troughs of food. It just looks like a cartoon. And then they have to actually they don't know ahead of time that ingredient is the key ingredient. So they have to then mentally just go through and create a menu off the top of their heads within 5 minutes, and then instruct their 2 helpers to actually cook the thing, which is just so fascinating to watch a chef actually work through what they're going to do and then try to execute it within an hour. It's an incredible challenge in a way that I think a lot of challenge shows now, reality shows, are not actually that. I mean, usually the challenge is either too strenuous to the point of just, of course they're going to fail, but the idea is they're going to fail and it's going to be hilarious, or
But they pull crazy shit off on Iron Chef.
They do, and it's so good. And for a show that is fully dubbed, the dubbing is actually really well done in a way that I think is actually kind of notable. I don't know how they actually pulled that off, where it all sounds incredibly naturalistic. They must have all just, the English actors must have all been in a room, I think, and maybe been coached on every line or somewhat fluent in Japanese. I don't know how they did it. Anyway, it's really, really good, and it's all on YouTube still, and I recommend you watch it. It's so fucking good. Anyway.
All right. And Nick, what is your other endorsement? Because Jake passed on his endorsement.
All right, fine. I'll do a short one. My stupid short one was I was in Hawaii yesterday, and I never get up in the morning ever. What does that mean? You never get up? I never get up.
Asleep right now.
I am. Well, I'm kind of asleep right now. But I very rarely get up before, let's say, 8:30. That's kind of my earliest hour. I'm not a morning person at all. But
wow, it must suck for you when we record this podcast at 8 a.m.
Yeah, it does. But I like it though. I like being forced to. And everybody in Hawaii said, you've got to get up one day and do the sunrise. And I was like, oh fuck, all right, I guess we're doing it. And I woke up at 5:30, and I was like, oh god, I don't have to be doing this right now. I'm on vacation. But I guess I have to because of the peer pressure. And so I was like, all right, we're going to go do this thing. And we went out there on the beach, and it was fucking phenomenal. And I haven't seen a sunrise from going from dark to the sun poking out in probably years.
It's been a while for me as
occurred to me.
Oh, I've seen it, but it's because of... It's actually been a minute, but as of a few years ago, I saw a lot of sunrises because of work.
Oh,
because
sure.
of just staying late and then going out on the deck outside of the office.
Yeah.
At my previous job and just going, well, there it is.
Yeah, that's a bad time to see a sunrise.
Yeah, that's different than being on vacation and seeing it on a beach
in a tropical island. But it was just really, I wouldn't say profound, but it was just a really nice moment that I just forgot you can have. So yeah.
So see a sunrise.
Yeah, do it. Why not?
That's nice. Yep. So aren't you glad you gave that and you endorsed it?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Wow, you let me pass? Amazing. Okay.
Do you have something? Well, thanks for joining us on Important If True.
Leave that in. Fuck it.
Thanks for joining us on Important If True.
Oh, I have an endorsement, Chris.
Okay. Oh, brilliant. Oh, man. I can't believe Jake was going to
That's
pass
such
on
a
his
good
endorsement.
endorsement.
No, that was so good. Everyone will appreciate that.
Yeah. I also
Yeah,
like
that's
peanut butter and
classic
jelly
Jake.
sandwiches, Jake. Yeah, no. I know. They're great, aren't they? Oh, man, they're so good. Yeah, no. 5 servings a day. Gotta get the jelly.
Thank you for listening to Important If True. We'll be back. We'll be back next week with more of this idiocy. You can send us. You can send us your questions if you need our advice or consultation. You need us to work through any problems you're having. Send that to questions@importantiftrue.com. You can find us on the internet at importantiftrue.com, and that has links to everywhere we can be found. Our forums, how to subscribe to the podcast, everywhere else. If you like the show, tell a friend. Maybe rate us, give us a review on iTunes if you like the show. That helps us out quite a bit, especially that word of mouth. And that is it for us this week. For Idle Thumbs, I am Chris Remo.
I'm Nick Brecken.
I'm Jake Rodkin. Why wasn't my endorsement drink Coca-Cola? Well, we know what we're opening with. We know what story one is.
Damn it.
Fuck.
Oh, God.
What?
Cripes.
Jeez.
Oh, darn.
Jeez.
Oh, darn.
Dang, 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 dang.
Please throw a podcast in toilet.
Try to.